Hello everyone, welcome to this chapter. In this chapter, we are going to talk about basic router and switch configuration and verification, and we are going to talk about Cisco switches and routers and comparing switches and routers. So we are going to compare Cisco switches to Cisco routers and talk about Cisco 2960. We have basic router and switch configuration commands, and we are going to talk about each of the commands and how we can reload the switches, routers, and configurations for the running config, startup config, and all of the configurations related to the basic configurations of the switch and router, checking the version of the switch or router, writing the configurations, and configuring the console port, and configuration of the enable password or enable secret, and checking flash, the storage of the switches and routers, configuring hostname, and the other commands. You know, all of the files are exactly in GitHub, Emacs, and if you go to this link and then Udemy Cisco Packet Tracer Network Administration CCNA Lab Part 1 and Chapter 3, we have all of the files, the Packet Tracer Lab template and completed files, and lab and commands, and the other information here. So this is the link to download everything. Let's start. First of all, let's check the lab file here. Number one, we should connect the Cisco 1841 router to the Cisco 2960 switch using two Ethernet connection. So in Packet Tracer, if you have the file from the chapter 2, you can open the file and just go to here, routers, and select the 1841 router and drop it here. And for the connections, you can select the copper cables or this one and connect the router to the switch. We should have two connections because later we are going to configure two IP addresses for the two subnets we have here, two different networks. So this router will be as a gateway in the next chapter. It's very easy, just connect the router to the switch, and the rest of the configuration and the verification commands. Here in the lab file from number 2, we have all of the commands for the verification and configuration of the switch and the router. But let me talk about the switch and the router and compare the capabilities of the switches and routers. So you know that the Cisco switch is by default is a layer 2 device, and we have 1 gigabit, 10 gigabit Ethernet ports that we connect the switches to different devices, from routers to Wi-Fi devices and end devices in the network. And these ports are layer 2 or layer 3 ports. So depending on the model, Cisco switches can operate as either layer 2, where they primarily forward traffic based on MAC addresses, or layer 3, where they can perform routing functions based on IP addresses. We can configure VLAN and quality of service. Some of the switches, depending on the model, can support PoE, and these switches are manageable, and we obviously configure Telnet or SSH to connect to these kind of devices. But if we compare the switches to the routers make decisions about the best path for data to travel between different networks based on the destination IP address of the packets. So, for wide area network connectivity, Cisco routers are often used to connect local networks to the internet or other remote networks. So they support various wide area network technologies, including DSL, cable, P1E1, or other technologies like MPLS, VPLS, and they perform NAT or network address translation, firewall and security features, VPN, and we configure ACLs for the security and quality of service and dynamic routing protocols like EIGRP, BGP, RIP, OSPF, ISIS. Cisco routers often have a modular design allowing for the addition of various interface cards and modules to support different types of connections. So we have different switches, different platforms and models. For instance, 2960 switches. These kind of switches perform layer 2 switching with fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet ports, PoE support. Some models within the 2960 series support PoE, allowing them to provide power to connected devices such as IP phones, cameras, and wireless access points. VLAN support quality of service and security features such as DHCP snooping, dynamic ARP inspection, SNMP stacking, which is very important because some models in the Cisco Catalyst series support stacking, allowing multiple switches to be interconnected and managed as a single entity. So if you search the internet, we have different models for 2960. So you can see that these kind of switches are in different shapes and models, and depending on our network we can select different models from these series. For instance, we have 2960 switch with 24 ports that you connect these ports to end devices, and you have 2 ports that you connect to the other switches. Or if we need the 2960 switches with more than 24 ports, we can maybe consider other models like the models with 48 ports. If you are using fiber optic cables, you should consider that these switches will be connected to each other or to the router or the other uplinks using SFP or SFP plus, depending on the gigabit or 10 gigabit technology, Ethernet technology. If you power on the switches, you will see that the front side you have a button like this. For the password recovery, we will use this button, but about the password recovery and that kind of stuff, we will talk about it later in the other parts and chapters. Okay, if you check the Cisco website for the Cisco Catalyst 2960 series switches, you can see that these kind of switches are end of support, but you may have these kind of switches in many networks at the access layer that you connect end devices to these kind of switches. So you can check the datasheets and product information from the link here. For the 2960 series switches, you can check the features and capabilities and product number from this link too, because we have different models. For instance, we have different models. If you check that, we have for each model we have different capabilities, different port numbers. Some of these models can support PoE or other capabilities. So for more information, you can check this link too. So going back to here, we have the links related to Cisco 2960 switch. So if the Cisco Catalyst 2960 switch is reaching its end of support or end of life phase, it's advisable to consider upgrading to a newer switch model that is currently supported by Cisco. Cisco regularly introduces new switch models with improved features, performance, and security. The specific replacement switch would depend on your organization's requirements, network size, and the features needed. So the Cisco Catalyst 9200 series switches are among the newer models that could be considered as an upgrade from the 2960 series. Catalyst 9200 switches are different, obviously. Capabilities are different. Platform and the models are different too. For instance, this is 9224p. This one is 48p. From the backside, as you can see, from the backside you should connect the power cables to these devices. These devices are modular, so for the uplink connections you should consider modules like this one, which is NM4X, to support 1 gig or 10 gig for your uplinks. So we connect the switches to the upstream and downstream. Okay, for more information you can check the Cisco website from this link, and for more information you can check the models. These kind of switches can support 160 gigabit stacking bandwidth and could be multi-gigabit or modular uplinks or fixed uplinks. In datasheet you can get more information, obviously, about the models, the uplinks, if it is modular or not, other information related to the switch model, downlinks, power supply, fixed uplink models, compact models, network modules, which is very important, PoE capability, and more information. Okay, to get more information, the links are here. What about the Cisco 1841 router? The Cisco 1841 router is part of Cisco's integrated service router. We call it ISR series, designed for small to medium-sized business and enterprise branch offices. What are the key features? It is modular, obviously routing capability, dynamic routing, OSPF, EIGRP, policy-based routing, ISIS, BGP, security features, for instance, VPN configurations, PPPoE configurations, L2TP, PPTP configurations. We can configure quality of service, MPLS and VPLS configurations, depending on the iOS, if it can support, obviously. And for more information, the links are here. These kind of routers are much more like this. From the front side, from the back side, you can see the ports, the console port. For the first time, if we are configuring these kind of routers, we connect the console cable to the router and we just configure the basic configurations. We have the Ethernet ports here, flash to store iOS, to connect the power cable. Obviously, mostly for the small business, for branch offices, not too much traffic. For more information, you can check the link here, Cisco website. 1800 series integrated services routers. For this platform, the status is end of support. But to have more information, you can check the documentation here. If you check the link here, as you can see, for 1841 integrated services router, end of sale and end of support. And Cisco recommended the Cisco 1921 integrated services router instead of considering 1841 ISR router. So if you check the Cisco website, this link here, as you can see, we have Cisco 1900 series ISR routers. So we have different models, 1905, 1921, and 1941. As you can see, it's a little bit different. Let's go back to the lab file. For number one, we connected the router. We connected the router to the switch. Number two, enable command. The enable command, you know, that is used in the Cisco IOS to enter privileged exec mode. So here, if we click on the switch, this is the user exec mode. So we type enable to access privileged exec mode or privilege mode or enable mode. Number three is the reload command. The reload command in Cisco IOS is used to reboot or restart a Cisco device. So the device will go through the process of restarting, reloading the operating system and configuration. So here in enable mode, if I type reload and press enter and confirm it, as you can see, we can reload the switch. If you select the router, obviously for the first time, ignore the system configuration dialog and then enable mode and reload the router. Same as the switch, you can reload the router. Okay, we have no configurations, so by default it asks to configure with the wizard. We don't need to configure. Press enter. Additionally, you can include various options with the reload command to specify parameters like the time delay before reloading or to cancel a scheduled reload. For example, reload in 10 seconds or reload cancel. Okay, number four, show running config or show run. The show run command in Cisco IOS is a widely used command that allows users to view the current running configuration of a Cisco device. So the show run command displays the active configuration of the device, including all the configured settings, parameters, and current status. So here on the switch or router, first of all, enable mode and then show running config. With this command, we can check all of the configurations related to the interface, routing protocols, IP configurations, telnets, line VTY, line console, and everything. For the switch, you can type enable and show running config. As you can see, by default, you have no configuration here. No VLAN configuration, and by default no password configuration for line console, line VTY, and no configuration for telnet or SSH. Additionally, you can use specific keywords with the show run command to display only parts of the configuration, for example, show run interface or show run pipe section, your keyword, or show run pipe include your keyword. For instance, show run include hostname configuration for this switch is switch. We can change it. Show run section line. which is related to the configurations for the console and line VTY. So when we have a lot of configurations for the switches and routers, you can check just one section of your configuration like this. Number 5, show startup config command. The show startup config command in Cisco IOS is used to display the contents of the startup configuration file stored in the device's NVRAM. So the output will display the configuration settings stored in NVRAM, including interface configurations, routing settings, security policies, and other parameters. Here on the router, I can check show startup config. As you can see, we have nothing here. Why is that? Because we didn't write any configuration. If we type write and press enter, after that we can check show startup config and press enter, and as you can see, we have startup configuration. So if you reload the router, because you have the startup configuration, the router loads the startup configuration. So just type reload and press enter, and we can see that the router started with all of the configurations. As we haven't configured anything, we have just a default configuration in the startup config file. Okay, if you check the switch show startup configuration, startup config is not present. So we can save the configuration on this switch. We have another command, copy running config to startup config. With this command, we copy whatever we have right now to the startup configuration file. If you type this command, it's similar to just type write. So if you make changes to the running config and want to save them, you should use the write memory or copy running config startup config command. Show running config, show startup config. We reload the switch. As you can see, we have the default configuration. Number 6, dir command. The dir command in Cisco IOS is used to display the contents of a file system or directory on a Cisco router or switch. You can type dir and check the contents of the file system. On the router, if we type dir, we can check the contents of the flash. You can see that we have an iOS file. This is the iOS file. If you check the switch, the iOS is different. Number 7, config terminal command. The config terminal command in Cisco IOS is used to enter global configuration mode for privileged exec mode. Obviously, for any configuration, we should type conft or config terminal, and as you can see, in this mode, we can configure whatever is related to the router or switch. After configuration, we type exit and go back to the enable mode. If we type exit again, we go back to the user mode. If we type enable, we go back to the enable mode. If we type conft, we go back to the configuration mode. Number 8, show interface command. The show interface command in Cisco IOS is used to display detailed information about the status and configuration of network interfaces on a Cisco router or switch. It's very important because this command displays information specific to the gigabit Ethernet interface or fast Ethernet or 10 gigabit Ethernet interfaces on routers and switches. The output includes details such as interface status, if it is up or down hardware, and MAC address, IP address, subnet mask, MTU, or maximum transmission unit traffic statistics, and errors, input and output rates, collisions, and other configuration settings. So in enable mode, type show interface and press enter. As you can see, we have different interfaces. For instance, fast Ethernet, which is 100 megabits per second, and we have more information here. If you press enter or space, you will see more information. Because this is a switch, you will see a lot of information related to the interfaces we have here. Obviously, the switches have more interfaces, and when you type this command, you will see a lot of information. On the switch, if I type show interface, include Ethernet, as you can see, we have fast Ethernet interfaces that some of the interfaces are in the state of up, and most of them are in the state of down. We have 3 interfaces in the state of up, and as we connected 5 interfaces to the other devices, just 3 of them are in the state of up. Or you think that we have collision in the network, or we have some errors, then we are checking the fast Ethernet interfaces on the switch. We can type show interface, include Ethernet pipe collision, and check fast Ethernet interfaces and the collisions related to that kind of interfaces with this command. For checking IP configuration, we have show IP interface brief. So if you type show IP interface, you can see that we have 2 fast Ethernet interfaces that they are down, and we have no IP configurations for these 2 interfaces on the router. Number 9. The show version command in Cisco IS is used to display detailed information about the hardware and software configuration of a Cisco device, such as a router or switch. This command provides a summary of the device's current operating state, including the hardware platform, software version, system uptime, and configuration register settings. The output of the show version command typically includes information such as system image file, software version, router or switch model and processor type, configuration, register value, system uptime, flash memory and RAM size, and more information. So on the switch, enable, and then show version. If you enter, you can see that this switch is 2960, the iOS name and version. You can check it here. The information related to the bootloader, uptime, which is very important, model, which is 24 TTL, processor and memory, number of interfaces, 24 fast Ethernet interfaces and 2 gigabit Ethernet interfaces, and other information, as you can see here. On the router, it's different. Show version, and the information is different. iOS version, the information related to the processor, memory, and interfaces, number of interfaces, the processor and memory, and the information related to the NVRAM and configuration register, and more information. If you are looking for some specific information, for instance uptime, you can type show version include time. You can see that the uptime is 39 minutes. Number 10, no service password encryption command. To enable the encryption of passwords stored in the device's configuration file, we type service password encryption, and to disable service password encryption, we type no service password encryption. So right now on the switch we have no password configured. On the switch, if we type enable and go to the configuration and type enable password and then type the password and we type exit and then exit. When we type enable, it asks for the password. If we type the password, which was Cisco, and then press enter, we can gain access to the enable mode. So if you just type show running config, you can see that the enable password is Cisco. So in this case, if you type conft and service password encryption and then exit and show running config, we cannot see enable password, and because of enabling service password encryption, we cannot see the password that we entered before. To disable the service, we can go to the configuration and type no service password encryption and press enter and exit and show running config. And right now, if you change the password in the configuration, type enable password, for instance Cisco or something different, whatever, exit and show run, you can see the enabled password. So after entering this command in global configuration mode, the password in the configuration file will be stored in plain text instead of being encrypted. So if you want to encrypt the password, you should type service password encryption. Number 11, we know that if we want to save the currently running config to the startup configuration file in NVRAM, we should type copy running config startup config. So here I type copy running config startup config and then press enter to confirm it. And then type show running config. We can see that what is the configuration that we have, and check the startup config, and we have the configuration because we just saved the configuration. And we know that alternatively a shorter form of the command is often used, which is write memory or just write. Number 12, do show run command. The do show run command in Cisco IOS is used to display the running config of a device without leaving the configuration mode. So if I configuring something in the configuration mode, for instance in conft, I am configuring hostname switch 1. I want to check the running config, so I type do show run and then press enter. I can see the configuration here right now. Or if I want to check the interfaces, I should type do show interfaces. So without exit, I can type any verification commands like do show interface or do show running config or do show version or something like that. Okay, number 13. The copy running config to flash. This command in Cisco IS is used to save the current running configuration to a file in the flash memory of the device. For example, I type dir flash and then type copy running config to flash and then type dir flash, and as you can see we have the running config in the flash. So we copy the running config in the flash in a file which is the running config. And you can delete the file too. Delete flash running config and press enter. dir, we have no running config in the flash. Okay, number 14, Cisco console configuration. These commands are typically used in the configuration of the console line on a Cisco device. For Cisco console configuration, we have some different commands that we should know about that. Line console 0, exec timeout, for instance, 30 minutes, and password Cisco, obviously it should be a stronger password, and then login commands. So after configuring these commands, the console line is secured with a password like Cisco, and users attempting to access the console line will be prompted for a password. Additionally, the console session has an idle timeout of 30 minutes. So on the router or switch, enable conft line console 0, exec timeout 30 minutes, and password, for example Cisco, and then login. Enter and exit. If you exit and then enter, the console line is secured. We should enter Cisco and type enable, and we have access to the router. If you type show running config, you can check the line console 0 exactly here, exec timeout 30 minutes, password Cisco, and login. It's very easy. On the switch I can do this too. conft line console 0, exec timeout 30, password Cisco, and login. So exit, enable. We have enable password, enable mode password, and this is Cisco 2, and then we can check the configuration and we can see the configuration here. Okay, number 15. The enable secret command in Cisco IS is used to set a password that controls access to privileged exec mode. So on the Cisco router, if you check the running configuration, you have no password. If you type conft and enable secret Cisco, press enter and then exit, and then exit again, it asks for the password, and you type Cisco and then enable. It asks for the enable secret password, which was Cisco. Press enter and you have the configuration here. You can check it. Enable secret. This is encrypted and you cannot see the password here. On the switch we should configure this too. So we check the running config. Instead of enable password, use the command enable secret. What is the difference between the enable password and enable secret? We can see conf-d and remove enable password with the command no enable password, and then type enable secret Cisco. Press enter and exit and check the running configuration. As you can see, enable secret is encrypted. So I write the configuration and exit Cisco, enable Cisco. Number 16. The show flash command in Cisco IS is used to display information about the flash memory on a Cisco device. So here I just type show flash and I can see that in the flash I have iOS. If I type dir flash, I can see the result too. So the output of this command typically includes information such as file system information, files in the flash. Okay, number 17. The hostname command in Cisco IS is used to set the hostname of a Cisco device. The hostname is a user-friendly label assigned to the device and it is often used to identify the device in the network. I can type conf-d and hostname, for instance switch 1. Obviously we change the hostname on the Cisco devices because when we have different devices, when we log into the devices, we know that which kind of device we are logging to. Do show run include hostname to check it and just write exit hostname R1 to check the running config, include hostname to verify and then to save the configuration, and it's very easy. All of the files and information are in this link. You can check it. Enough for this chapter and thank you for listening.